Okay, here it is. I mean, we talk about, first level family and extended family, and then friends of friends, so on. Mum likes to talk about 6 degrees of separation, but I needed to start with my family. I understand that Steve is still part of my family. I met him in November of '95 for the first time. However difficult it may seem, a year before to the same weekend, I met Wayne for the first time, and Wayne is a great guy. He had problems in his childhood that he couldn't deal with. He got on with it. Had bad relationships, but then got married and had kids and bought a property and got 4 trades and 2 jobs and a Valley Forge truck and just about everything else. Anyway, that's not the point. Last night at 6 o'clock, what I wanted to say was, the three of us and Wayne and Steve, right? For whatever that dynamic is, because of the relationship I have with each of them is different than the one they would have with each other. But it's like, well, Dad's not here, but the fact is we all are, and even if we don't like each other and don't spend every day together, we need to respect who we are. And I think that a big part of my problem was that everything that I saw my mum, my brother and my dad do that I didn't like, I had already experienced, and I should have stopped before it happened to someone else. This is a problem I've had to deal with since my childhood, mainly because of aspects Mum had to deal with. Anyway, last night at about 6:30, I took photos, 2 photos. One of what was the Advance Bank, and one across the street of the post office. I was thinking about 2 people who were the coolest people I met, and lived the furthest away of anyone I'd met at a certain point in my life. The reason I took the bank was because my mum walked in there with money she didn't have on Christmas Day. And 3 days later or whatever, gives them $1,500 so I could have $1,000 in traveller's checks to go to the States the first time. What does that do? That was one side of the street is one person, and the other side of the street, the post office, was where I sent a postcard to the other person, and it was like they're closest friends, but they're equal and opposite. So I thought about them, and then after running around in my head for a while, I called Kaylene. The thing is that at the end of December '95, Mum sent Jamie and I away as a present for us. It's like, okay, we're adults now, and I'd had a year out of high school, and Mum probably wanted Jamie and I to have a bond as adults, not as children anymore. Jamie and I went up there, but Jamie invited one of his friends, thinking that I was going to dampen the dynamic that he wanted to have, and I couldn't stand the friend he took with him. So I walked into a McDonald's on Cavill and met Kaylene. Within an hour, we were on the way to her house. Within 2 days, Mum and I had rebooked a flight. And within 3 days of that, Kaylene and I had gone out on New Year's Eve, and I went to Somersault where I saw all these bands. It's a memory I'll have because out of all the festivals I've been to, it was the first one I went to outside of Sydney. Saw a whole bunch of really cool bands, thought that was great, and ultimately for me, it was an experience because, in March, Kaylene said to Mum while I read poetry, and Mum was bawling her eyes out. I didn't know what to do. I called 3 or 4 different people because I needed them to say to Mum, look, I am sorry. I have done the wrong thing. I don't want to hurt you and I don't want you to hurt me. But the fact is, we shouldn't hurt each other and then go on and hurt everybody else. So I called Kaylene and said the simplest message, knowing that she could call Mum, right, could repeat what I said exactly, not knowing what it meant, and that Mum at that point would get the message clear and crystal. That's my cousin who flew 700 kilometres twice in a day to honour one of the people who linked us all, and to be honest, made us all better people. I guess that's why Mum asked me to do the family tree.